$60 for a candle? That's not just the cost of scented wax. It's the price tag on something far colder, far more deliberate. A calculated betrayal. Today is April 21st, 2026. As the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth fall into a respectful silence to commemorate what would have been Queen Elizabeth II's 100th birthday, an entirely different countdown has just hit 0 in Montecito, California. At exactly 9 Pacific time, while King Charles III was placing a wreath at Windsor, Meghan Markle pressed publish on a move that sent shockwaves straight through Buckingham Palace. This isn't merely a product launch. It marks the formal commercialization of the monarchy's next generation. This is a special investigative file Whiskey Papa 2026-4. The American Riviera Orchard website has unveiled what may be its most controversial offerings yet. Signature Candle No. 506, titled Prince Archie of Sussex, and Signature Candle No. 604, Princess Lilibet of Sussex. For the first time ever, royal titles belonging to minors, which the late Queen firmly insisted should never be monetized, have been reduced to retail CU identifiers. If this use of royal heritage feels as unsettling to you as it reportedly does within palace walls, hit subscribe and turn on notifications now. We're tracking this unfolding situation in real time. The timing here is no accident. It's strategic. Behind closed doors at the Montecito headquarters, insiders say Meghan gave her marketing team a clear directive. One source recalls her saying, "We need to control the narrative around the titles before the palace moves to strip them. Once they're on the labels, they're part of the brand." But the brand itself is under strain. Our investigation has uncovered a confidential dossier from Australia's Roy Morgan polling group following the Sussex's recent so-called royal tour. The findings are striking. 81% of Australians now believe the royal roleplay has crossed a line. Think back to 2:30 p.m. last week at Bondi Beach. On camera, Meghan appeared cheerful, but a closer look at the crowd control setup reveals a different reality. Barriers were prepared for thousands, yet fewer than 200 people actually showed up. In a moment caught on a hot mic, Prince Harry, visibly uneasy, was reportedly heard asking an aide, "Where is everyone?" This was supposed to be packed. The response? A silent, icy glance from his wife, which brings us to the mechanism behind all this. How does a hospital visit become a revenue stream before We've broken down the strategy used during the Australia tour into a 3-step system we're calling the tragedy pivot. Step 1, access. Meghan appears at emotionally charged locations, sites of grief, like the Bondi Memorial or pediatric cancer wards. Step 2, the royal embrace. A carefully orchestrated photo moment designed to spark global emotional engagement. Step 3, conversion. Within minutes of those images going public, the exact outfit she wore is linked across digital shopping platforms. At the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, staff were reportedly taken aback. Before entering, Meghan was overheard telling her per-lead, "Let's keep this quick. We need the lighting right for the outside shots." The priority, it seemed, wasn't the children. It was the visual for the brand. The backlash has been immediate and precise. At 10:15 a.m. today in London, the office of the Lord Chamberlain reportedly held a meeting with Prince William's legal team. They're not just expressing outrage, they're preparing action under what insiders call a black memorandum, a legal pathway tied to the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. The escalation is moving quickly. Legal representatives from the Duchy of Cornwall have already filed a formal objection with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Their argument: using a prince and a princess on commercial goods like candles and chocolates implies unauthorized endorsement by the crown. If you believe a line has been crossed that can't be undone, comment the word protocol below. We want to gauge how many of you stand with royal tradition over what's being called California-driven commercialism, but perhaps the most unsettling detail, the Lilibet candle. Using the Queen's deeply personal childhood nickname to market amber and sandalwood fragrances on the very day the world is mourning her has reportedly been described by palace insiders as a profound act of desecration. One source close to Prince William summarized his reaction in chilling terms. She has turned our grandmother's memory into a $60 product. That's it. The gates are closed, and now there may be no going back. Stay with us. In the next segment, we'll uncover the confidential scenario tree currently under discussion at Kensington Palace, including a specific date in July when Harry's titles could face formal suspension through an act of parliament. This is breaking. Don't go anywhere. Now, take a closer look at the structural blueprint behind the brand. As ever, this isn't some harmless lifestyle brand. It's closer to a jurisdictional takeover. To a casual observer, these appear to be high-end candles. But to analysts inside the Lord Chamberlain's office, they represent something else entirely. Proof of a calculated corporate breakaway. By labeling the products as 506 and 604, Meghan Markle is applying a sophisticated psychological anchor. She isn't just marketing a scent, she's offering what amounts to a symbolic access point to the Windsor lineage. In elite branding circles, this tactic is known as fractional royalty. The customer isn't simply purchasing wax and fragrance. They're buying into the idea of displaying a prince's name in their home. It's a deliberate attempt to convert a 1,000-year-old institution into something resembling a subscription-based commodity. Yet the most revealing evidence of this approach didn't originate in California, it surfaced in Sydney. Room 2402 of the Intercontinental Hotel, April 16th, 2026, at 2 a.m. While most of the tour staff were asleep, a secure call was reportedly placed between Sydney and a prominent intellectual property law firm in Los Angeles. Internal records, now under review, indicate an urgent legal consultation was taking place. The objective was straightforward. Determine whether the titles of princess could be trademarked as private intellectual property within the United States. This is what insiders are calling the Montecito Doctrine. If official royal roles are denied, the strategy becomes to commercialize the crown independently. If a trademark claim on something like a prince could be secured, it opens the door to restricting others from using it commercially. In effect, it's an attempt to reframe monarchy as privately owned intellectual property adapted for the American marketplace. But there may have been a critical miscalculation. The figure now standing in opposition, Prince William, isn't approaching this as a media dispute. He sidestepped headlines entirely, moving the matter onto what insiders call the authority ladder, advancing methodically with the discipline expected of a future monarch. At the center of this response is the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. This isn't being treated as a personal disagreement. It's being framed as a constitutional level review of how royal titles are being used for financial gain. Kensington Palace is reportedly executing a 3-phase containment strategy designed to isolate the Sussex brand financially. Step 1, documentation. Over the past 72 hours, William's team has been assembling a detailed file cataloging each instance where royal titles are used commercially. Every candle, every product flagged as a potential breach of sovereign protocol. Step 2, Commonwealth blockade. Plans are said to be underway for a suspension mechanism that would prevent companies operating across the 56 Commonwealth nations from engaging in distribution deals tied to these disputed titles. For a brand built on global prestige, exclusion from markets like the UK, Canada, and Australia would be devastating. Step 3. Financial quarantine. By rendering the Sussex titles legally risky, the palace is effectively warning major retailers, from Harrods to upscale boutiques in New York, that carrying such products could jeopardize their standing with the crown. The battlefield has shifted. This is no longer about public opinion. It's about international commerce. While Meghan's strategy appears to rely on perceived gaps in U.S. law, it may overlook a core principle. Royal titles are granted by sovereignty. They are not privately owned assets. As tributes to the late Queen continue, a quieter question is reportedly being raised within Montecito circles. What becomes of a brand built on titles if those titles themselves become liabilities? The answer, it seems, is contained within a sealed file at Kensington Palace, and the window for Prince Harry to respond is narrowing. At 9:00 a.m. in London, King Charles III delivered a message without needing to say it directly. Standing at his mother's memorial during a globally broadcast 15-minute address, he never once mentioned Harry. That omission was deliberate. It signaled what some interpret as an institutional distancing, removing the Duke of Sussex from the narrative on one of the monarchy's most significant commemorative days. While London maintained composure, something very different was unfolding online. At exactly 1:00 a.m. California time, visitors attempting to access the American Riviera Orchard website were met with a blank page and a 404 error. To the public, it looked like a surge in traffic had crashed the servers following the candle launch. But according to insider accounts, the reality may have been far more targeted. Sources linked to the hosting infrastructure suggest the outage wasn't caused by demand, but by intervention. A group of intellectual property attorneys representing the Crown had reportedly initiated an emergency legal action, challenging the use of sovereign titles on a commercial platform. In other words, the issue wasn't that the candles sold out, it's that something may have stopped them from being sold at all. They weren't selling out, they were effectively being intercepted, like goods confiscated at a digital port. And the unraveling of the Sussex strategy didn't stop online. By 3 p.m. in Sydney, the Roy Morgan emergency poll results were released, and the numbers delivered a crushing blow to the so-called royal rebranding effort. A striking 87% of Australians reached a clear conclusion. Harry's attempts to mend ties with the king through product tie-ins and emotionally driven campaigns aren't just falling flat, they're being seen as inappropriate. The data shows a sharp public rejection. Australia, once considered one of the Sussex's strongest bases of support, appears to have shifted decisively. As one analyst observed, the Sussex effect has flipped. The more visible they become, the further their approval ratings decline. Rather than being viewed as global representatives, they're increasingly perceived as opportunistic observers of crisis. This brings us to what may be the most pivotal development in the past 24 hours. At 8 p.m. tonight, a senior Kensington Palace source confirmed a decision that effectively draws a firm line between the two households. Catherine, Princess of Wales, acting in her role overseeing the 2026 royal calendar, has reportedly removed Harry and Meghan from all scheduled state events, balcony appearances, and family engagements for the next year. Internally, this move is being referred to as the Great Decoupling. This isn't being framed as a temporary pause. It's a structural reset. By excluding them from the 2026 calendar, the intention is to prevent the monarchy's official agenda from being overshadowed by external commercial activity. The message is unmistakable. A dual role, part royal, part commercial, will not be accommodated. As this historic centennial day draws to a close, Harry appears to be facing an increasingly narrow set of options. The website is offline. The king has distanced the official narrative. The Prince of Wales has effectively closed the door on reintegration. And public sentiment, once supportive, is now markedly more critical. The Lilibet brand, envisioned as a global launch platform, now risks becoming a liability, pulling remaining credibility into a deeper legal and reputational challenge. The question has shifted. It's no longer about whether the backlash can be managed. It's about what remains if the strategy fails entirely. Meanwhile, developments are still unfolding. Reports are emerging of a recent private phone call between Harry and his father, allegedly concluding with a prolonged silence lasting around 30 seconds. What was said remains unclear, but attention is now turning to internal planning discussions reportedly underway behind palace doors. Within the secured corridors of the United Kingdom Intellectual Property Office, a substantial file has reportedly been finalized and marked under the reference IP UK 2026 Sussex. This signals a shift away from immediate speculation towards something more formal, a state-level review into the commercial use of royal designations. For months, Prince William is said to have been assembling a specialized legal team, constitutional experts, alongside leading trademark attorneys. The focus is no longer personal, it's institutional. The Sussex operation is being assessed as a commercial entity operating in potential conflict with Crown-held rights. At the core of this review is a proposed legal mechanism described as the Commercial Title Suspension Rule. To understand its implications, it helps to look at how royal titles are treated under long-standing constitutional principles. Within the framework of the British state, such titles are not personal property or transferable branding tools. They are sovereign distinctions retained under the authority of the monarch. The legal argument being developed is precise. Using titles like princess or a princess in connection with retail products without explicit authorization could be interpreted as an improper use of sovereign identity. Another way to view it, the Crown operates as one of the world's oldest institutional brands. Applying those titles to commercial goods may be seen as leveraging state-conferred recognition to enhance private enterprise. Under the proposed rule, if a title is used for non-charitable commercial purposes, its recognized validity in that context could be withdrawn. If enacted, the consequences would be far-reaching for the Montecito-based business model. Products labeled with such titles could face reclassification across the United Kingdom and the broader Commonwealth network. Instead of being treated as luxury goods, they could potentially fall into the category of disputed and or unauthorized merchandise. Picture the implications at international points, ports in Sydney, Vancouver, or London, where such items could face scrutiny or restriction under revised legal interpretations. Shipments from American Riviera Orchard were reportedly arriving at international ports only to be held by customs, treated less like premium goods and more like unauthorized imports. This is what insiders are calling a constitutional blockade. It doesn't just interrupt sales, it disrupts the entire supply chain. By rendering the Sussex brand legally risky, Prince William is effectively placing global retailers in a difficult position. Major department stores in cities like London or New York are unlikely to risk legal exposure tied to alleged misuse of royal associated branding. Reports now suggest that several U.S.-based luxury distributors have already paused their Mother's Day agreements with Meghan's team, awaiting clarity from officials in Whitehall. The concern is clear. Aligning too closely could carry legal consequences tied to Crown-related claims. The strategy has escalated. This is no longer about managing headlines. It has shifted into the realm of international commercial law. What may have been intended as a lifestyle venture is now being viewed in some circles as a potentially significant legal risk. And as the clock moves toward a decision from the Lord Chamberlain's office, new developments are emerging. Ones that hint the candle launch may only be part of a broader financial strategy involving the long-term positioning of the Sussex brand. Attention has turned to events in Sydney. While legal teams in London were finalizing documentation, the carefully managed public image during the Australian tour was reportedly under strain behind the scenes. Publicly, the visit was framed as a successful return, but off-camera, accounts describe a series of tense, revealing moments. One of the most notable incidents allegedly occurred during a visit to a children's hospital, expected to be the emotional centerpiece of the tour. Meghan arrived prepared for a highly visible engagement, but according to internal accounts, A brief exchange captured on a nearby microphone painted a different picture. Moments before entering the ward, she was reportedly heard telling a staff member, "Let's make this quick. We need to catch the exterior light." That single remark, if accurate, suggests a disconnect between the public-facing narrative and behind-the-scenes priorities. What appeared to be a moment of compassion may also have been part of a tightly managed production schedule. Another significant development came from an unexpected direction. According to hospitality sources in Queensland, Meghan's team had approached the Irwin family, well known for their conservation work and stewardship of Australia's zoo, to arrange a collaborative appearance. The idea was to align the Sussex brand with a widely respected legacy of environmental advocacy. However, the proposal was reportedly declined. Sources suggest the decision wasn't logistical, but principled. The Irwin family, known for their long-standing support of the monarchy and connections with Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, are said to have viewed the collaboration as misaligned with their values. Their refusal was interpreted by some observers as a notable signal within Australia's public landscape. In branding terms, when highly trusted figures opt not to associate, it can have a measurable impact on public perception. Tensions reportedly escalated later that day. At approximately 3:45 p.m. inside the Intercontinental Hotel in Sydney, witnesses on an executive floor described hearing a heated discussion coming from the Sussex suite. Prince Harry was reportedly seen on a balcony reviewing recent crowd data, engaged in an intense exchange with advisors. The source of frustration appeared to be a stark comparison. During their 2018 visit, large crowds had gathered across Sydney. In contrast, the 2026 appearances saw significantly lower turnout, with prepared barriers standing largely unused. Harry was reportedly heard questioning the situation, why expectations of a repeat reception hadn't materialized. While those present may not have answered directly, the broader trend is evident. Public interest has shifted. What was once widespread enthusiasm appears in some areas to have cooled. For Harry, the moment may represent a turning point, an awareness that the dynamic has changed both publicly and institutionally. The contrast between past reception and present reality has become difficult to ignore. And with that realization, the situation appears to have reached a critical psychological threshold. Harry may be searching for a way out, but Meghan is already scanning for the next opportunity. As evening settles over the Sydney Opera House, a new report has surfaced. It centers on a black case Harry reportedly brought with him from London, a package said to contain something entirely unexpected.